Mr. Pedro Arroyo Agudo. He's the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights to Safe Drinking Water and Sanitation. Mr. Arroyo Agudo will be joining us online, but not immediately. I understand he's currently engaged in another event, but he'll join us shortly. So we'll make the announcement as soon as he's available. And then we'll also have a solidarity statement from the coordinator of Africa Water Justice Network. Is Mr. Leonard Shang Kwate. As the name implies, you'd have guessed when you hear Kwate that person is probably a Ghanaian. And then we'll have someone from the United States from Corporate Accountability. That's Mr. Neil Gupta. Neil Gupta is the Water Campaign Director at Corporate Accountability. This will be followed by the press text for the week, for this week. It's be taken by no other person than Sefa Ikpa. Sefa is Program Officer, just like I mentioned before, Program Officer, Water Campaign at Kappa. In the course of things, we'll also have interventions from several of our partners also abroad. We're going to have Fatou Diop. Fatou Diop is the rep of Senegal Water Justice Network. And then we have Kumbulani Mafosa. Kumbulani Mafosa is Zimbabwean, and he's the director of Matabele Land Institute for Human Rights in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. This will be followed by Ndivile Mukwena. Ndivile Mukwena represents Gender CC. That's a CSO in South Africa. Gender CC, Women for Climate Justice, South Africa. Of course, we're going to have Professor Odukoya, his intervention as well. And then Olumide Idowu is the co-founder of International Climate Change Development Initiative. Finally, we're going to have intervention by of course, we'll have a couple of minutes for questions and answers and then closing remarks. Without much ado, we're going to go to the welcome remarks by Mr. Akimbode Oluwafemi. Mr. Akimbode Oluwafemi, I know the time says 10 minutes, but I'm going to cut that by half and give you 5 minutes. Thank you so much. I know you don't mind.
Good morning, everyone. So, distinguished guests, comrades, members of the press, friends from across Africa and around the world joining us in Lagos and virtually, I want to say a very warm welcome to the start of this year Africa Week of Action Against Water Privatization. It is a privilege to open the 5th Africa Week of Action Against Water Privatization, convened by the Water Our Rights Coalition, Water Our Rights Africa Coalition, ORAC. Each year, this week-long resistance brings together an alliance of grassroots movements, labor unions, civil society organizations, and community leaders, united by a simple conviction that water is a human right and public trust, not a commodity for profit. And this year's event is particularly significant for 2 reasons. First, for the first time in ORAC's organizing history, this week of action is being held in partnership with the African Make Big Polluters Pay Coalition, an African-wide network of organizations demanding for climate justice and corporate accountability for environmental harm. This partnership symbolizes the deepening recognition that water justice and climate justice are inseparable, and that to privatize water in an era of escalating climate shocks is to compound vulnerability and institutionalize inequality. Secondly, we are delighted to have in our midst the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Human Rights to Safe Drinking Water and Sanitation, Mr. Pedro Arroyo Agudo. His participation affirms the global dimension of our struggle. It signals that the fight for equitable, publicly governed
short-term profit incentives of the private sector are fundamentally incompatible with the long-term planning and investment that the climate crisis really requires. And private water corporations recognize the huge sums of money to be made from privatizing this service that we all need to survive. Now, the largest multinational water privatizers in the world are the French corporations Veolia and Suez, which each rake in billions every year, leaving a decades-long track record of abuse in their wake. And the scale and speed with which privatizers have been able to expand their control of water systems has been greatly facilitated by institutions in the global north. From the World Bank to the IMF, international financial institutions foist privatization and austerity on governments at the expense of the people. And we're also witnessing a really alarming rate of direct global north government interference in water. First, while there was a ton of fanfare around the shuttering of the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, make no mistake, the U.S. government is still intent on meddling in the water policy of other countries to open up business opportunities for corporations. For example, in Lagos, just this year, the U.S. government is backing a multi-million-dollar corporate water scheme that has been really shrouded in secrecy. In Kenya, privatization of bulk water supply projects is in the works following years of World Bank pressure to change government policy. And the corporations vying for these major contracts have backing from the UK government, among many others. And perhaps the most blatant example of state support for privatization is the French state's backing of these private water giants, Veolia and Suez. Now, the French government, the French state, is one of the largest shareholders in both of these corporations. And over just the last year, it has also entered into formal multi-year partnerships with these corporations through its development agency, which many of you are familiar with, AFD. And that really presents a pretty glaring conflict of interest, as the state stands to financially benefit from lining up privatization schemes for these corporations across the African continent, as it did just a few months ago for Suez in Gabon. Now, it's clear from these handful of, unfortunately, far too many examples that global north governments and the institutions they control are inappropriately entangled with the water privatizing industry. Building communities and workers' power as the counterweight to these corporate takeover schemes is at the heart of what brings us together today as we embark on this week of action. And I'm just really honored to have had the opportunity to share with you all today. Thank you so much, and I'll pass it back to Rob.
Thank you very much, Neil. That was a really insightful one, giving us an international picture of the water crisis. What you thought was a localized crisis is actually a global one, with even governments behind this grab for public water for private purposes, for profits, that is. Thank you so very much once again, Neil and Leonard. Fatu, I know you're online and you are raring to go. We're just going to do sorry for the audience, we're just going to do a brief adaptation of the agenda. Fatu is supposed to come in a bit later, but she has to come in now for very important reasons. Fatu is the rep of Senegal Water Justice Network. But Fatu, just before I give you the mic, we're going to call on, I just want to know if Olumide Idowu is in the room. Olumide Idowu, if you're here, can you please just put up your hand? Okay, Olumide isn't here just yet. Olumide is the co-founder International Climate Change Development Initiative. Maybe he will be here, join us shortly. So Fatu, thank you so much once again for joining us. Yes, you have the mic and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll try to do less than 5 minutes. Thank you very much once again. Thanks for inviting me, for letting me talk in this very important event as the week of action against privatization of water in Senegal, in Africa. So my name is Fatou Diouf. I'm PSI Public Service International Project Coordinator for Africa and Arab region. I'm also representative, as the chair just said, of Senegalese Water Justice Network. I'm member of African Water Justice Network as well. So it's my pleasure to be here, and also I would like to take this opportunity to thank CAPA, but also to congratulate all the organization members of Our Water, Our Right Coalition. Let me go quickly on our in my solidarity message. So, dear brothers and sisters, dear defender of social and climate justice, Africa is facing now a silent storm, a storm where third means speculation. On one side, climate change dries our land, food, and our villages, and disrupt our seasons. And the other, water privatization turns our common good into a commodity, surrendering our lives to the law of the market. Together, these forces form a deadly cocktail for our people. While some profit from every drop, others dig deeper, work further, and seek for water that no longer belongs to them. We were told that privatization will bring efficiency, but reality tells us a story. Wherever it takes hold, prices raise, quality drops, and inequality explode. Private operators pursue profit, not justice. They invite where it pays, not where it's needed. Yet water is life. It is not a budget line to balance. It is a fundamental human right to defend. To privatize water is to rob Africa and its ability to defend itself against climate change. Our rivers are shrinking, our groundwater is vanishing, our coastlines are retreating, droughts last longer, rains become violent and unpredictable. And how do many governments respond? Under the influence of financial institutions like IMF, World Bank, etc. They respond by opening our public water system to multinational corporates, as just Neil said, that see in climate change crisis a new market to explore. But we see something else. We see rural women walking kilometers to fill a bucket. We see young people leaving their villages because the well hasn't run dry. We see waterborne disease returning where water has been handed to private control. This is the real face of climate crisis, a threat that has become political. Faced with this double threat, we say stop privatization, stop the commodification of life. We demand strong, transparent, democratic, and publicly financed services. We want systems that put resilience before profit, policies that see water not as a product, but as a pillar of human dignity and peace. This is what Africa climate resilience look like. It looks like communities that manage their resources collectively, states that invest in public access, people who refuse to hand over their future to shareholders. This week of Action 2025 is a moment not only to say no, but to build a collective yes, a Pan-African yes to Pan-African solidarity, yes to climate justice, yes to public water for all. Why world leaders gather to talk about growth, we here in Africa, we talk about survival, dignity, and justice. And we will repeat it until it echoes in every capital, every village, every institution. There can be no just climate, no sustainable future, and no lasting peace as long as water remains subject to the law of profit. Thank you very much. May this week of action be a wave of courage and consciousness, a tide that sweeps away thirst and raise a free, just, and resilient Africa. Thank you very much, Chair.
Please put your hands together for Fatu. There's something she said that is really remarkable, really struck a chord with me, and I'm sure it did the same with you. They see the climate change crisis as a new market to explore. It's a crisis, it's a problem for us, but they see
Recording.
it as a market to make money. It just goes to show you how, I don't want to say despicable, but you have an idea of how desperate these guys are, how desperately conscienceless they are. We're going to go on to Safer now. Safer is going to deliver the press text for the week, which is the what you know as the statement, if you like, public water for climate resilience. Like I said before, Safer is the program officer at Water Campaign at Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa. So Safer, you have 15 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Happy to see you again. The last time we saw was in March this year. I'm so happy to have you all join us today in solidarity as we kick off the 5th Africa Week of Action Against Water Privatisation. I am reading the statement on behalf of the Our Water, Our Right Africa Coalition, a network of activists across the continent. Presently, we have representation in close to 15 African countries, and the statement is being read on behalf of all partners scattered across Africa and some international partners. Today, civil society organizations, community networks, youth groups, trade unions, and grassroots movements across Africa converge to launch the 5th Africa Week of Action Against Water Privatization, a continent-wide mobilization under the Our Water, Our Right Africa Coalition, OWARAC. From today, 13th of October, to Saturday, 18th of October 2025, under the theme, Public Water for Climate Resilience, this campaign will assert OWARAC's simple, consistent, and urgent claim that water is a public good and a human right, which must never be surrendered to the logic of profit. The choice of this year's theme reflects the reality and severity of the moment. Africa faces multiple and overlapping environmental challenges, and climate change in particular often reveals itself most forcefully through water. Across the continent, intense and prolonged droughts, devastating floods, coastal erosion, and increasing unpredictability in rainfall is disrupting lives and livelihoods. In the Horn of Africa, successive seasons of drought have dried rivers and wells, leaving millions dependent on humanitarian aid. In places like Mozambique and Nigeria, catastrophic cyclones and floods submerge boreholes and wells, leaving thousands without safe water and compounding outbreaks of waterborne diseases. In North Africa, rising seas push salt water into fragile coastal aquifers, while intensifying heat drains rivers and reservoirs through rapid evaporation, leaving communities caught between contaminated groundwater and vanishing surface supplies. In the Sahel, irregular rainfall unsettles agriculture and fuels conflict among shrinking water sources. All these shocks collide with decades of underinvestment in public water systems, leaving societies doubly exposed to climate extremes and deprived of the infrastructure that might have cushioned their impact. Ordinarily, these challenges should serve as a wake-up call for governments to invest in stronger, publicly governed water systems capable of protecting life under climate stress. Yet, in many African states, the opposite is taking place. Governments, often at the behest of private sectors and international financiers, have seized on this crisis to justify the transfer of water provision to private actors. The most striking example is the surge in desalination projects promoted as a climate-proof solution. But desalination is no panacea. It is extremely energy-intensive, largely dependent on fossil fuels, and produces a concentrated salty waste called brine that pollutes marine ecosystems, destroys fisheries, and further dispossesses coastal communities. Desalinated water is also way more expensive than conventional sources. In other parts of the world where it has been introduced, such as the Carlsbad plant in California, the cost of desalinated water is a whopping 73% higher than the existing water supply, even as it has been flagged multiple times for environmental violations. In Tunisia, desalinated water is estimated to cost up to 3 times more than reservoir water, with energy alone making up to 40% of the total cost. Such exorbitant expenses create the perfect opening for multinational corporations to build and operate the plants, granting private engineering firms and utilities access to systems that were once public. For example, last year, the Kingdom of Morocco entered into a 35-year concession with Veolia to develop and manage a massive seawater desalination project planned to be the largest in Africa and the second largest in the world, and framed as a solution to supply drinking water to drought-stricken regions of the country. Yet, Veolia's global record is far from reassuring. In Bucharest, Romania, as in other places where its record is marred by controversy, its 25-year water concession saw tariffs rise almost 6-fold, forcing households to bear the heavy costs of privatization. We reject this trend outright. OWRAC rejects this trend outright. The climate crisis must not be turned into a pretext for water privatization. Climate resilience is not an abstract slogan, neither is it built on the transfer of public goods into private hands. It is the capacity of societies to absorb shocks, protect ecosystems, and guarantee continuity of life when disaster strikes. Public water systems, when adequately financed and managed democratically, are the backbone of such resilience. They carry the potential to plan for the long term, to extend service to marginalized communities, and to integrate social equity with environmental protection. Privatization, by contrast, undermines resilience and thrives on short-term profit. Its record across Africa and beyond is consistent, neglecting low-income and rural communities considered unprofitable, as well as raising tariffs that lock the poor out of access. In times of climate stress, such models only deepen exclusion and leave societies exposed to disaster. Colleagues, brothers and sisters, it is against this backdrop that this year's Africa Week of Action situates itself. For the next few days, OWRAC and its allies internationally will coordinate activities to expose the harms of privatization and highlight alternatives rooted in public, equitable, and climate-ready provision. Our mobilization will elevate the voices of those who live with water insecurity and climate shocks, insisting that their needs must be placed at the center of policy. To start with, we urge African governments to put human need before financial returns and call on international institutions to end the destructive practice of tying privatization conditions to loans. We further demand that corporate profiteers take their hands off Africa's water and stop using the climate crisis as a pretext to plunder the environment and control a resource so fundamental to survival. Africa's water cannot be auctioned off to the highest bidder without imperiling the very basis of life. The alternative is not utopian. Climate resilience water governance can be achieved through pathways that strengthen public systems rather than dismantle them. Sustained public financing must be channeled into water and sanitation infrastructure, ensuring that utilities are not only functional, but robust enough to withstand future shocks. Investment in renewable energy can reduce the carbon intensity of water provision, ensuring that adaptation efforts do not fuel the very crisis they seek to mitigate. protection and restoration of watersheds, wetlands, and aquifers can anchor ecological resilience, while participatory governance guarantees that communities themselves shape decisions about their own water. Crucially, the incorporation of indigenous practices such as rainwater storage, aquifer recharge, and community-led catchment management can provide culturally grounded, low-cost, and sustainable pathways to expand resilience in the face of climate uncertainty. Public water partnership across regions can facilitate peer learning, exchange of expertise, and continental solidarity, building African solutions to African problems without reproducing dependence in corporate monopolies. Climate resilience will not be delivered through privatization schemes that entrench inequality and exclusion. It will only be built through strong, transparent, and publicly accountable systems that protect water as a common good and guaranteed access for all. African governments must resist the tide of commodification and instead chart a future where water remains firmly in public hands, managed for people and not for profit, and secured as the foundation of life in an era of intensifying climate crisis. The statement has been signed by 18 groups from Senegal, Nigeria, Ghana, USA, Cameroon, Kenya, Zimbabwe, the Gambia, Togo, and Uganda. Thank you.
Please join me in putting your hands together for Sefa Ikpa and the Our Water, Our Rights Africa Coalition. There you have it, the full picture of why this is holding today, of why it is important that we resist the push by corporations, by countries to privatize water. You cannot claim that because there's a climate crisis, you then use that as an excuse to take water off, put your hands on water that is necessary for the public survival. Yes, there you have it. Thank you so very much, Sefa, for delivering that very powerful statement. Now we're going to go on to, okay, first of all, before we do, let me ask if Olumide Idowu is here again. Olumide, are you in the room? Okay, Olumide is not here. I also want to check. If the special rapporteur is here now, United Nations Special Rapporteur, if you're online. Okay, he'll be joining us by 12 o'clock. That's in like 6 or 5 minutes. So right now we're going to go on to interventions. I know a couple of you would already have some questions, so you can just keep dropping your questions in the Q&A box if you're online. And then if you're right here with us, you just note it down. We'll give you an opportunity to ask and then an opportunity for us to respond as well. Don't forget, if you're online, we'd also like to know who you are and where you're joining us from. So you can just indicate that in the chat section. Just tell us your name, your organization, and where you're joining us from. I also want to know if Kumbulani Mafosa, are you online? Oh, okay. Oh, great, fantastic. I just heard great news, and that is that the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights, Safe Drinking Water and Sanitation, Mr. Pedro Arroyo Agudo, is online. So we're going to hand over the mic to you at exactly, or in a couple of minutes. Just be on standby. But first of all, let me just say, those who are online, please just indicate where you're joining us from. We want to know who you are. And those who are here as well, if you haven't filled the attendance sheet, please do that. There's a form at the back of the room where you can do that. So, Mr. Arroyo.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You're ready. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we'd love to hear your introductory remarks, solidarity statement, etc., etc. And you have 10 minutes for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, and excuse me, I apologize because I'm here now participating, supporting a camp, a women camp in Brussels, next to the parliament, asking for solidarity with the Gaza Strip, the Palestinians. Under the lemma is a women camp, under the lemma leaving home Gaza. And I was just intervening when I had the commitment to connect with you. So excuse me, please, excuse me. Well, I will tell you, on Thursday, next Thursday, I will present my report on democratic water governance as a common good to the UN General Assembly. The report is available in any case to the public on the website in all official UN languages. Okay, so you can read it whenever you want. In it, I summarize the main ideas I have presented in previous reports regarding the risks and impacts of water privatization and commodification strategies that have been promoted since the 1970s, when Pinochet's dictatorial regime imposed radical water privatization in Chile. Mrs. Thatcher followed suit in England. Later came the French model, which avoided um, directly privatizing water or large infrastructure projects and instead focused on privatizing management through what is known as the PPP strategy, public-private strategy, that has been, in fact, during the last decades, countered with the support of the World Bank, even it is unfortunately from my point of view, but well, and from this strategy, the public-private partnership, large operators suggest, mainly European, suggest remaining even minority shareholders with 49% of the shares, while the public institution holds 51%, you know. But the key is to recognize in the contract that control and management remain of these public-private companies remain in the hands of the minority partner due to the alleged complexity of management. They talk about, you know, the know-how, the savoir-faire in French terms. It was the pretext to justify that finally is the private company who is in charge of managing the mixed company. Well, and the last time in my report, I insist on something that is during the last decade, less even, sophisticated financialization strategies are being promoted. Are we the need to invest? It is necessary to invest billions, you know, in sophisticated technologies. Amounts that are certainly never justified either documentally and methodologically. But well, they ask for huge investments in high technology, claiming that the governments do not have the public funds to meet this challenge, and concluding finally that there is a need to promote public-private financial partnership strategies in which public capital, this is for me incredible, but they ask in this way, they make this discourse, no? Which public capital must shield private capital from all kinds of risks, while promoting tariff increases that guarantee attractive profits for investing of corporations. You know, well, for me it's incredible, but this is the discourse. And I said in my report to the UN, I will defend this before the General Assembly. I said, well, beyond the perversions, the evident perversion of this rezoning, I suggest a reflection. Really, is there really no public capacity for financing, or is the relevant budgetary priority not being assigned to the effective fulfillment of human rights? And I think very often in developed countries, but even in non-developed countries also, why is there, for instance, no talk of a lack of public funds for the irrational and suicidal arms race that is currently being imposed on us. You know, this is my reflection. Finally, and I used to say one thing more, and I want to explain. I say, look, priority is a principle essential for human rights, in budgetary terms and in other terms. And they used to say when they told me, no, because we have no enough means, we have no enough resources. That doesn't justify relegating the principle of priority. And for this, I use an example is, let us think, let us reflect on the most impoverished families and communities worldwide. What is the priority for these people? In Africa, in all around the world, what is the priority? Is water. And who are in charge of dealing with this priority? Women. Women take the priority of water and make all kind of efforts, time, risks, because priority is water. So I will insist in New York in some days, I will say, Excellencies, Excellencies, I ask the government to pay attention to this and to take the example of women that are doing every day this work, taking the priority of water. Take the example of women in this question. And finally, I must say I'm extremely concerned about the privatization of rural community management that is taking place in some African countries. I'm very, very worried about this. I've just returned as a contrast, from Colombia, where the parliament and government are approving a bill proposed by the powerful community aqueduct network. All the network, more than 30,000 institutions, community institutions in rural areas in Colombia. It's called aqueducts. In this new law that they are approving, they called for a public community partnership strategy. Public community partnership strategy. I think it could be good to have this reference. And from this strategy is not just to recognize from the government, to recognize and respect the community management model, but also establish budgetary provisions to support community systems. It is a good example, the best example we have for democratic water governance. That is the question that I am defending, I will defend before the General Assembly. The democratic water governance, but not just the rural areas, in all kind of surroundings, urban or rural surroundings. Water, I finish by remembering the lemma of the Italian movement when, the referendum against the privatization of water that Mr. Berlusconi tried to do in a direct way as a decree. And there was a huge movement that finally a referendum that was won against the privatization. And the lemma of this huge movement in Italy was se escribe agua pero se lee democracia. It is written water, but it is written, you have to read democracy. On écrit eau, mais on lit démocratie. Ça c'est très important. Water is a reference for democracy worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Arroyo. That was, you hit the nail on the head, to be honest, because these are the same posers that we've also been facing in Africa. We're wondering why public water is not prioritized. And we're so delighted that you mentioned this same issue. And in particular, we're particularly interested in that in the Colombian example you cited, the example of public community strategy. to handling of water. We think that's a truly innovative strategy, and one that many countries would do well to emulate. We wish you all the best as you speak to the United Nations General Assembly, and we thank you so much for your very clear ideas and very pro-people ideas towards water governance. Thank you so very much. That was the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights to Safe Drinking Water and Sanitation, Pedro Arroyo Agudo. Thank you so very much for joining us today.
You're very welcome, and thank you to you for inviting me. I am at your service for the future.
Oh, fantastic. We're certainly going to call on you in a very short while, I'm certain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So we have a couple of people online, and I know, for instance, that Ndivile Mokoena, I know Ndivile, you've been online for a while, and you're raring to go, so yes. Oh, it's good to see you once again, Ndivile. Thank you so much. Ndivile is from Gender CC, Women for Climate Justice, South Africa. Ndivile, you're going to have 5 minutes, and then we're going to take Professor Adelaja Odukoya. He's also going to give us his intervention for 5 minutes as well. Kumbulani, are you online too? If you're online, so we can just be prepping you up for when your session will when you also have your turn. Godfrey Okante, I see you have your hands raised up, but I wonder if you can pause that thought till the question and answer, or if you can just drop your question in the Q&A box so that we can come to it later. Zikura Ibe, you're also going to have a chance to speak. Ndivile, you have 5 minutes, and your time starts now.
Thank you, Program Director. Greetings to everyone. And I'd like to give thanks to CAPA for inviting me, and also for including South Africa in this quite important campaign. And thanking also the previous speakers who have touched a lot in most of my intervention, so which leaves me just to summarize. I'll start by mentioning that water privatization involves transferring the management and ownership of water services from public to private entities, raising significant debate about efficiency, accessibility, and accountability. And I think most of previous speakers have alluded to them. Now, my country, South Africa, is considered a water scarce country by global standards. The water crisis in the country is compounded by environmental impacts of low rainfalls, droughts, leaks, and aging infrastructure. So using water as a commodity has many ripple effects in our communities. The industrialization of water has made it difficult for marginalized and vulnerable communities to access free, clean water as a human right, which is enshrined in our constitution. Water has become a political commodity, make profit rather than a basic human rights service. So as Gender CC South Africa, together with Alexander Water Warriors, which is a community-based organization that is working specifically on water issues. In our intervention in this week's campaign, we call on all governments, private sectors, water entities and institutions in our country, in Africa and the world over, to stop water privatization, because water is life. And in Alexandra Township, it is a struggle for survival. Communities do not have access to clean and safe water, and most importantly, they cannot afford to buy water that is freely given to us by nature. So we are joining communities across the continent to affirm that water is a public good and not a commodity. The theme, public water is for climate resilience, speaks directly to the lived reality in Alexandra, where climate change, infrastructure, and Inequitable access to water threatens communities' dignity and well-being. Water privatization increases cost of living. It also has accountability issues, where profit over public welfare is prioritized, leading to underinvestment in infrastructure, poor service quality. Instances of environmental violations and inadequate responses to water crisis have been reported in privatized systems. There is a violation to human rights, water, as water is a fundamental human right and should not be treated as a commodity. Privatization undermines this principle of human right to water, potentially leading to situations where only those who can afford to pay have access to clean water. We have seen outsourcing the functions connected with water provision, such as meter reading, pipe laying, water testing, and water cutoffs increasing. The protection of the right to water is a human right principle. And our Constitution imposes specific obligation on the state to respect, promote, protect, and fulfill the right of access to water. Furthermore, the state has the obligation to take reasonable legislative and other measures within its available resources to achieve the progressive realization of this right. Privatization of water has a direct impact on food security, health, human dignity, and well-being. And in conclusion, the privatization of water remains a contentious issue with strong argument on both sides regarding its potential benefits and drawbacks. As global water scarcity becomes a pressing concern, the debate over how best to manage and deliver this essential resource will continue to evolve. Policymakers must carefully consider the implications of privatization on access, affordability, and accountability in water services. We say no to water privatization, and there is no alternative to water. Water cannot be replaced like electricity. You find an alternative that if you don't have electricity, you can use candles, you can use wood, you know, to light the house or to keep the house warm. But with water, there is just no alternative. It cannot be replaced. I will stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Ndavile, for painting that very graphic picture. You know, I'm sure, like, I was at a point I was thinking that the water crisis in South Africa had been largely resolved. So I'm a little distressed to hear that in certain parts of South Africa, water is still a very, very scarce commodity. We wish you well in your efforts towards rectifying that and preventing government from privatizing and going the privatization route. Thank you so very much, Ndavile. We're going to go on to Kumbulani. I don't know if you're online. Kumbulani Mafosa. That's another country. He's from Zimbabwe, and that's another country that is also in the throes of water privatization. It seems the government is bent on privatizing water against the public interest. So, Kumbulani, it appears you're not online. So maybe we're just going to go straight to Professor Odukoya. Professor Odukoya, like I mentioned before, is the Dean Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of Lagos. Prof, thank you so much for joining us once again, for honoring our call to be here. So, Prof, you can give us your solidarity remarks, your intervention, that is. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Once again, let me congratulate you for this. This is really very unique. My intervention is titled Public Water for Climate Resilience, defending life, defending water, and defending democracy. And I'm very happy that Pedro actually drew that nexus between democracy. Water everywhere, but none to drink. Immortal fella told us, water no get enemy. But now, water get enemy. We have water kidnappers. We have water terrorists. And we have water bandits. They are both local and international. And it is because of them that we are here. So that we ensure that their nefarious activities which compromises life are actually taken care of. And we must situate this with all this within the context of what I call disaster capitalism. A capitalist order that profits people's misfortune. And we have the global bad Samaritans, the World Bank, the IMF, the marketing agents for transnational capital, and they're actually in charge of saying privatization of water will bring a lot of things. But the reality we have actually contradicts that. They equally argue privatization will bring efficiency. Even in Britain, water privatization has led to a lot of problems. It has only increased dividends to stakeholders, shareholders. It has public infrastructure, water infrastructure has been bad. Last year alone, I think over 1 trillion liters of water were wasted because of leakages. So people even in Britain, we're even talking about advanced capitalist country, are talking about renationalization of water. So the issue of privatization does not even come up. It's not and cannot engender resilience. Privatization is wired to produce poverty, inequality, exploitation. So the issue is that water justice is equally environmental justice. And all this story about climate crisis being natural and things like that are bogus. The truth is that climate disaster are political, and they are rooted in the political economy of international exploitation. Water privatization, the way where it is actually part of the agenda of the second recolonization of our continent, which we must not allow to thrive. Climate resilience cannot and is not compatible with privatization. We must deprivatize, because the way it is that it denies people access and it's actually impoverished people. Beyond that, this whole idea again that the effect of climate change is random is equally a bogus lie. There's a geography of inequality and poverty that actually negatively affects and impacts poor people. And of course, it's equally more worrisome, because in terms of water, most of the water scarce countries are in Africa. And like somebody equally said earlier, I think it was in the statement, over 300 million, which is from the statement has even gone to 400, are faced with the issue of scarcity of water. So, for us, we must insist that water should remain and should go back to the extant position of being a public good. Privatization of water is a disaster. Privatization says if you cannot pay for water, you perish. We say water is a common. It's for all. It's a collective good, and that is why it's linked with democracy. Because democracy is about the people. The people owns everything. So we cannot continue in a situation whereby it is only those who can pay for water that should get water. Water is linked to everything, and I'm very happy even the last speaker said it. All products you may get alternative. Maybe it's only water and air. Even air, you can even have this artificial, you have oxygen. But water is water, and water is life. So we must in terms of actionable this thing, we must start building a continental front for public water. Water must be recognized as central to life and climate adaptation and justice. We must empower community and workers as co-manager of water. And finally, we must end corporate control of African water. Water is a public good, and it must be made so. No to privatization of water. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Prof. Thank you so very much, Prof, for that very poignant intervention. Water is life. There are no two ways about it. Water has no alternative. You can't say you're going to drink fuel because there's no water. That is why water should not be privatized. It should be a common good for everybody. Thank you very much, Professor Dukoya. Next, we're going to go on to Zikora Ibe. But before, let me just check whether Kumbulani is online. Oh, Jeffrey. Yes, Jeffrey, you put your hand up the other time. Jeffrey, are you there? Are you still there? If you're there, can you just turn in your camera? We should be able to take your intervention right now. Okay, it appears Jeffrey is offline. So if that is the case...
Am I fine? Hello?
Hello, Jeffrey. Oh, yes, we can hear you. Yes. So you can just go right ahead. We have 5 minutes for you. Thank you.
Quick one. I think I'm saluting all my comrades out there. And in the commentary, just the last speaker, in the commentary, sounds as if somebody does us a good by giving us water. The money that governments used to go into these PPP actually are that is seed to these So what happened in Ghana in 2006 was that when government erroneously, unfortunately, unpardonably went into that contract agreement with Upper Pitran, the managers who came, less than 10 people, came to use the same assets that the Ghana people actually funded and was operating. But that the guise of inefficiency and ineffectiveness and the lack of money to run, they actually ceded these companies, so this company to the private persons. So it's actually our money, our assets that they used to go into these agreements. So actually nobody's begging anybody for money to go around the sector or give us water. Somebody is telling somebody that my money must be used properly to generate water for me. Just as you use my money to buy the big cars for yourself, just as you use my money to fund yourself to go on trips, just as you use my money to build cathedrals when I've not had the strategy to do that, just as you dream of using my money to go and build a chamber that I have to stop doing in Ghana. That is what we are talking about. So again, Ghana's situation is bad. We want all of you to join us. What we are saying here is the illegal mining in water, even in war situations, when one country is having a war against another country, there's a universal convention that bans any country from poisoning the waters of another country, even during war. How so? Human institutions, blessed with the capacity of the brain, would allow somebody to get on water and mine, leaving deposits of cyanide and mercury in the water. It's unpardonable. So they are creating a situation, it's a cartel. They are creating a situation where they will mess up the water, the management cost will go high, the water company cannot do anything, and then they will go again with their cartel of IMF and World Bank and come back and tell you about water privatization. This is a little I want to talk about, and let us, our voice stand straight that nobody is doing us a favor. We are not pleading with anybody. We are telling somebody that our money from our cash revenues in taxes and contributions is what we are telling them, that our thumbs voted for them to give us water. Thank you. God bless all of you. And comrades, Diva, let's go on. Alita, continua. Bless all of you.
Victoria Asatia. Thank you very much, Jeffrey Okansi. Jeffrey is a member of the Our Water Rights Africa Coalition in Ghana. As you can tell from what he just said, he's very passionate about water rights and climate rights in Africa. Thank you very much once again, Jeffrey. So we're just going to round things up very soon, but in the meantime, we're going to take the intervention by Ziki. Ziki, would you like to just give us, yes, I think that, and then Mr. Buddy can round things up. Oh, okay. Oh, my goodness.
Okay,
Yes.
questions.
Yes.
So, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for finding time to join us today. I think much has been said, and there's really nothing that I can add, but I'll still speak because the mic has been given to me. And so, because everything has been said, I would like to center on the state where we are, Lagos, and its connection to this theme, public water for climate resilience. Everything has been said about how climate is devastating communities across the world, and Lagos is not out of that situation. In Lagos, we've seen how floods and ocean surges are also devastating communities, and it is on this premise that I want to also firstly appreciate the Lagos state government for its recent drive towards preserving wetlands. We say that wetlands are part of nature's way of absorbing climate shocks, and if we preserve our wetlands, we can, in a way, build climate resilience. But away from that, we want to also ask that same policy imagination that the Lagos state had in its thinking to begin to preserve wetlands should also extend to public water systems. When it comes to public water systems, it would seem that the Lagos state has given up entirely in what it means for the residents of the state. And so it means that there is hardly any place in this state, maybe somebody here has water running in their houses or in their environment. Maybe you can tell me, but I can see somebody shaking her head. She has no water running in her community. Same thing as me. I do not have water running in my community. And we keep asking, what is the problem? The special rapporteur has asked, is it true that governments do not have the capacity to provide public water to people? That's not true. We know the amount of money that our government spends. We see the news, we read it every day. So it can't be true that the government does not have the capacity to provide something as basic as water. We want to also ask why the Lagos state government is completely fixated on privatization of public water systems, something that has been proven and shown across different climes that it has failed. It doesn't work. But over and over and over and over again, we have seen the Lagos state government continue to put its resources on private capital, ask private capital to take over public infrastructure. In recent times, as recent as 2 months or 3 months ago, that's in August, the Lagos state government put out a request for proposals for private capital to take over control of mini and micro waterworks in this state. And the more the people continue to complain about how unfeasible this is, the more the state continues to say that it works. In fact, it has continued to defend that privatization or asking public-private partnerships is not privatization. And the question we are asking is, what exactly is privatization? If you are going to give a private actor, if you are going to ask a private actor to take over public systems, build it, finance it, decide who is going to assess it, set tariff prices, is that still public management? It is not. It is not. So what else is the government doing? If the government will hand over its responsibility to private capital completely, what else is it beyond the paper that it is signing? Right? Something we continue to ask again. If the government says that this is beneficial and this process that it has continued to embark on, even despite opposition from communities, if it is beneficial, why are these deals shady? Why are they signed behind closed doors? Why don't we know the details, the amount of money that is committed to this? Why do we only have stakeholder engagement after the deals have been signed with private capital? That is a question we are putting forward to the Lagos state government that the Lagos state government needs to answer. It held a stakeholder engagement a month ago where it said it was trying to boost public confidence in its recent drive towards public-private partnerships on micro and mini waterworks across the state. But the question is, why is this happening only when it has gone into an agreement with private capital? Why is meeting with communities and people who use this water only done after the Lagos state government has sealed agreement with private capital. So it is on this basis that we are using this opportunity, we are using this meeting to once again reject the Lagos state government's drive and obsession with water privatization. It does not work. And even the institutions pushing the Lagos state government to adopt privatization will not tell you that it has failed where they are coming from. The special rapporteur said it. Prof also said it. In England, water privatization has failed. Every time you open up the news to read, you keep hearing how people are complaining about their tariffs going high. So why are these same institutions pushing Africa to adopt that kind of market trend that has failed across everywhere? So we are challenging the Lagos state government today on the basis of this meeting. If it indeed works for people, if indeed it says that what it is doing is for people's good, we are asking them for three things. One is to pause all its ongoing public-private partnerships, especially its recent one, until a proper, honest, democratic stakeholder meeting has been held. We're asking it again to open up all ongoing PPPs, those ones that it has signed. In April, it signed a PPP partnership with Bellstar Capital, that's a US investment company, to take over some of Lagos water systems. And I think Enka, a Turkish engineering firm, to also manage some of Lagos water systems. So what we're asking it is, all the ongoing PPPs currently happening, can Lagos State open its book so that we can have an independent audit? Let civil society see. Let community members see. Let people who this water is most important to see exactly what the Lagos State government has signed. It has signed several memorandum of understanding agreements with private companies and actors. Why are they secret? So we are challenging them to open up the memorandum of understanding agreements that they have signed. Let us see it. Let the public engage, if indeed that it works truly for the people. And it should stop mouthing that defense of privatization. We are not completely privatizing, we are just, it's not true. In fact, the basis for this recent privatization drive was what led to the sacking of 800 workers, Lagos Water Corporation workers, last year, as a basis for privatizing water systems in Lagos State. One thing again we want to ask the Lagos State Water Corporation is why it is always happy to talk to international media first before talking to local media about its plans for water systems in Lagos State. It will first of all talk to Global Water Intelligence and international news that paywalls access. I think you have to pay $20 or more to access the news that Global Water Intelligence shares about water trends across different places in the world. And that's where Lagos State Water Corporation goes first, to inform them about what it wants to do before talking to locals. So before knowing what is happening in your environment, you have to pay up to $50, $20 to know what Lagos State Water Corporation is doing. So we want to ask you to amend that bad character. It's not good. You want to do something, talk to locals first before running to international media. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ziki, for spotlighting the issue where we are right now in Lagos State. Just to, I know members of the media might need this. Anyway, it's publicly available. I just want to give you a list of some countries where water privatization has failed. In the United States, in Chile, in France, in Bolivia, in Tanzania, in Indonesia, Argentina, Cameroon, Gabon, Ghana, Mozambique, and Tanzania, some of the countries where urban privatization water projects failed. Yet, some states in Nigeria are insisting on going back to that failure. This is one of the reasons why we say no to water privatization, or WRAC is saying no to water privatization. Yes, before we go on to questions, we just want to take a quick remark from somebody on the climate, ecosphere. Yes, it's just a remark. Yes, that's just what we need from you. I'm going to call on Olamide Martins. Olamide. Okay, closing remarks. Okay, great. So just keep your gunpowders dry. We'll come back to you, Martins. We're going to go on to the question and answer session. I know several of you have questions. I saw a couple of you taking notes while the speakers were speaking. So first of all, we're going to go on to, do we have anybody online with a question? IT, do we have anybody with a question online? It appears I saw a comment in the, do we have any question? Okay, we don't have any questions, so we'll come back to the room. So if you have a question, can you please put your hands up? Okay, we have, so we'll take it by numbers. Number 1, number 2, and then we have the man in suits that is outside. I don't know why you're outside, but we recognize you from wherever you are. That's number 3. Then we also have number 4. Okay, so it appears all the, you know, I said I'm not going to crack a joke, but I just want to say this. In school, all the brilliant people used to sit in front. And all the people that we thought were brilliant used to sit in front. So in this classroom that we are, it appears all the brilliant people are on my right. All those on the left, well, I don't know your position in class. Okay, so we're going to start with the very first question, number 1. So please just introduce yourself and then go straight to your question. Please, straight to your question. Thank you. And that applies to everybody, please.
I'll try. My name is Paul Dada, PM News. Actually, I have 2 questions. The first one is very simple. You've been doing this for a while, you know, campaigning for water as a fundamental human right. You know, it seems to me that the campaign may not be getting anywhere. I mean, I commend you for your doggedness, resilience, but we keep hearing these stories, sad stories. You know, it's like we're not getting joy yet. Are governments really receptive to your arguments? That's number 1. Has there been progress? That's what I'm asking. Has there been progress, you know, in terms of the reception, you know, agreement on the part of the authorities you're saying are, you know, colluding, if I may use that expression, with these private operators in that sector? Now, the second question is this. Yes, there are downsides actually to privatization, but let me play devil's advocate. The prof used very harsh terms to describe these private operators. He called them water bandits, water terrorists, and all of that. But again, don't you think that it could also be for the purpose of efficiency that these private sectors are brought in? I mean, private operators are brought in. After all, we've seen efficiency in some other sectors like telecommunications, like other sectors, power. No, don't you think that maybe the issue, you know, Zikora spoke about transparency. Don't you think that the issue is actually about the transparency in the contractual agreement and all the other things surrounding it? Don't you think what we should be calling for is better regulation to balance between commerce and responsibility to the society? Now, please let me also ask this question. Now, could BOT be an alternative to these operators just owning the infrastructure, the water infrastructure, you know, build, operate, and then transfer back to government? Don't you think it's an alternative? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you promised to ask 2 questions, but I lost count at one point. I think it was about 3 or 4. Okay. So before we answer that question, we'll just take one more question from number 2. Then, since you had like 3, 4 questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sumi Adeoye. I work with Radio Nigeria. I just want to add to, it's a comment. I want to add to what Ziggy said a while ago, because as she was talking, it's as if she was bringing out my anger. In my area, I live in one of the suburbs in Ikorodu, and we have over 500 houses. So you can imagine how many households are in that area. The only public water there last pumped water 10 years ago. The only one. Now, there is no public water. Now government want to privatize water. I wonder how the downtrodden, the grassroots can afford this. The only way people in my area get water is through neighbors, the magnanimity of neighbors, people who have boreholes in their houses and they give out water. And it becomes worse when there's no light. Because they start selling. Even those that have the fear of God that don't sell, they won't even give out water. So the people, you now see young, little children, old people, traveling, walking miles, looking for water. Thank God for the rainy season we are in now. We've not had light in my area for over 3 months. You can imagine how people will be suffering. I pity women with babies. Usually you need water for babies. Even adults to wash children's school uniforms, their clothes, their clothing and all. I just wonder why government is punishing us. Prof said it a while ago that they are terrorists. And I agree with him. Thank you.
Thank you very much for, please just hand over the mic to number 3, but just hold on. We'll want to take a response to, since number 1 asked like 4 questions in one, and then number 2 asked.
So please permit me to stand up. I've been a little bit dull today because of what's happened last night. So, so number 1, please, I want to speak to my brother. There is a fundamental principle that we need to go back to. If you don't understand that fundamental principle, we will not understand ourselves. And the UN rapporteur made it very clear that water is not like any other commodity. You cannot substitute water. In fact, there is nothing for water. Nothing. Water is water. And that's why we say water is life. If you have very clear understanding about that, then we also need to come back to our history and culture. If you ever lived in the village, you find out that our grandfathers, our forefathers, in all our African communities, they treat water in a very, very sacred way. In fact, they used to have cultural codes to the best waters in the community. That is basically not allowing anybody to have unequal access, because they know that it is a common, as Prof said, it's a commonwealth. All of us must have access to it. We have that understanding, right? We also must have the understanding that corporations are formed to make profits. In fact, I have a friend that says corporations are never to do good. Yes, they are formed to make profit, and the only responsibility they have is to their shareholder balance sheets. So if we have that understanding, please, can we marry that again with what the UN rapporteur said, that no government in the world has any excuse for not providing basic drinking water. If they could have money to do so many other bad things that, can anybody actually not a poor state? In fact, Lagos is a country. Lagos wealth equates, Lagos economy now is about the 5th largest or 6th largest economy in Africa. So, what then will be their excuse to say they cannot provide water? Up until Jakonde, if you go to the history of Lagos, you can have water, we see water infrastructure everywhere. The problem of water infrastructure came in Nigeria, not only in Lagos, when the World Bank started giving them loans, money, big money came. The more money that came, the less water we got. And it's not only in Lagos, buy water in Kwara. In fact, it caused a political uproar in Oyo State that have not people that knows politics of Oyo State, Bola Ige and Omishore, was everything has to do with Ashejire water. And the river basins. Thank you. So the problem came when monies came. Do you understand? Our government should go back to the UN resolution that says water is a human right. When the water is now given to these people, what has been happening elsewhere in the world? There will be job losses. They fired 640 in Lagos Water Corporation last year. Till today, there is no improvement in that. There will be high rates all over the world. There will be high rates. Of course, some of us that have friends in the world knows when they say, you'll be seeing them shouting, don't open the tap, don't open the tap. There will be, in fact, we missed one item today. There's supposed to be a video, yes, there's a video message from Pittsburgh in the United States. Please, let the IT people to follow. There will be contamination because they only think over profits. And then you speak about privatization as the silver bullet that has solved every problem. Hello, as privatization of power in Nigeria brought efficiency, do you see electricity? So please, see, see.
I was only trying to echo the argument. I'm not saying that, hold on please. I am not saying I am convinced by that argument. But
so
you are giving us one side of the narrative.
So please, we are giving, I'm going to give you more. I don't want this to be like a debate. And I believe Prof is going to say, but I'm going to give you tons and tons of materials to read. That, what is bringing efficiency? Look, privatization's biggest corporation is Suez from France. Today, the story is what Prof say, remunicipalization. The new way for water supply around the world now is that municipalities are taking over the water from privatizers. Now, they have failed, they are not making progress, they are now selling that back to us. And I'll speak to somebody that said that, are we making progress? So sometimes when people ask me about progress, I have my own way of evaluation. So I see progress from the conversation we are having. And a friend of mine will say it could have been worse. Can you imagine if Nigerians don't speak to government, the kind of government we will have today? Can you imagine if whatever government says they want to do, we keep quiet? What we'll have today, right? When we started, the governor of this state was, what's Fashola's other name now? No, Fashola. Raji, extremely popular Fashola. And they said that there is nothing, they were almost about to sign the contract. Then, these are documented though. In fact, it's even documented by the World Bank. But till today, they are still trying to market and do and see what they can do. Ambode came. And of course, we are now in the regime of Jide Sanwo-Olu, right? Now, Lagos State has also increased what we claim they are putting into water infrastructure. However, there is also what the UN rapporteur said, that we don't watch carefully. They create the illusion that these private companies are coming to us with money. But at the end of the day, the PPP model actually makes it in such a way that it's still the public funds and that will be the collateral for whatever they are doing. Sounds complicated. Please go and check the agreement that Lagos State signed on Visionscape. And then you will know how much the state will have paid on professional fees alone on a monthly basis. Please go and check the PPP arrangement that Lagos State Water signed with Oando Energies. And the money, we're not speculating. That's why I say we'll give you tons of documents to read. PPP, not only in water, in everything in Nigeria, is the biggest scam. They will tell you they are bringing privatizers, but ultimately they are still going to use the public money, and then people are going to pay more. Ultimately, they run tripping and it goes back to their private pocket. We're making progress. We produced this report called Big Debt, Big Tasks. This report is causing a lot of ripples. But the good news I can share with you was that the team went to Bauchi State. And you find out that states are taking what we do here very serious. They don't even have a copy of they don't even have this hard copy. They printed and downloaded it, and they are using it as roadmap to improve on their public water infrastructure in Bauchi State. I don't think there is any other way we want to measure progress more than that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me join you by standing up. Talking about efficiency, I won't even want to start here. Just Google or do an AI search about the problem of water privatization in UK. One of the things that will come up is inefficiency. In UK, not even in Africa, one of the things you get is inefficiency. And when I was talking the other time, I equally, to actually zoom in on the issue of inefficiency, I said over 1 trillion leakage, liters of water in terms of leakages last year. That talks about inefficiency. And again, not even when they started, I have an article online, you can check it, Privatization, the UK and Nigerian experience. One of the things I discovered when I was doing that is that that paper, I think it's a 2006 paper, it's online, is that even in UK, people cannot buy bath on daily basis because of water privatization. Is that bad? And again, in my own discipline, there's what we call comparing and miscomparing and non-comparing. What does that speak to? Sometimes we appear to be comparing, but we are actually not comparing because there are rules for comparing. For instance, when we even, apart from the inefficiency, let me see anybody here, even the young lady here, you very rare if you don't have 2 or 3 phones. That speaks to inefficiency because you cannot be too sure of having network at any point in time. Go to UK, go to any other country. You don't see them doing that. So that's why I'm talking about comparing and miscomparing. What are we talking about? Even telecommunication. It's not essential. It's not basic to life. So you can't even compare, let's even for the purpose of argument, say that there's efficiency at that level. It's not the same thing as water. So we can't even be comparing. Then more importantly, I missed that out and I'm happy this came. Public-private partnership is not even new. It has always been there. Because the private sector is the other side of the public sector. It's a continuum. People move with ease from private to public. And what does that tell you? Tell me any rich, you name any 5 rich men in Nigeria that is not getting contract or not linked with government. Just some 2 days ago, I saw the video of how Obasanjo made Dangote. Yeah, it's online. And who is Dangote before 2003 and thereabout? So what am I saying? Public-private partnership is actually legalization of robbery. It is, and he has given evidence. It's all that, and that's why they won't have answer to your question. It's always shown in secrecy. They can't be open. Because, you see, before privatization, what privatization have done is to legalize, they are taking over our common patrimony. Either they steal from the Commonwealth, but they hide. But with privatization, they came out openly, even take it over. It's no longer sufficient for them to steal little. They not take it over. So now you are beholding on them. So there's nothing about, we should not miss the 2 things. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. much, Prof, for that very explicit intervention. We're just going to take this short video from Pittsburgh in the United States. It's also one of the our partners is also expressing solidarity along with the Water Our Rights Africa. Are we ready? Okay, great. Oh, yes. So we can go right ahead, yes. There's no audio. Okay, the video is going to come back up shortly. As you saw there, that was from Gabby Gray from Pittsburgh in the United States. It's basically to show you that the water crisis is a global problem, even in the United States, not just Nigeria. Neil mentioned something about Flint in Michigan. They also had a similar crisis where water became a problem, privatized water for Americans. Okay. Okay, okay, please just bear with us for a few. I'm not sure. I don't have access to. Okay, so maybe while IT is working on that video, we can just take a couple more questions. Number 3. So can you just keep it short, just direct to the point, please? We're totally almost out of time.
Oh, okay. My name is Stanley Hedibo. I write for the Middle newspaper.
Okay, sorry, Stanley, okay. Before you go on, I think is our video ready now? Okay, Stanley, just go on with your
Okay. Although my question have been answered, honestly, but I just want to kind of remind my colleagues here that, like what our CE said about this PP stuff is a scam. Look at when the Daily Times, when they give it, what happened? What the proprietor did, he first of all sell 70% of the asset. And well, even when they bought the power holdings, they sold 70% of the asset of this unbonding before. Yeah, we're talking about the even LMA petroleum. That's the area I just want to before, yes. That is not any good for us. And by the grace of God, I have visited other countries. I see where things are working. Government is really behind those, like when it comes to water and or transportation and electricity. The government is behind sponsoring it. And also, I want to ask, sir, please, if it's possible, sir, let's look at the budget of this Ministry of Water. Sir, can you just help us? If it's to take them courts, please do it for us. They have been budgeting billion upon billion and nothing to show for it. Sir, please help us ask or take them to court. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much for that. Thank you very much for that intervention and question. I know, Mr. Bode, your time is really limited. You have to leave any minute.
I have to leave,
so
but please let me just remind us of this. Again, about progress. So, if not because of this campaign, for those of you that have borehole, I just want people to always remember that they actually did a bill so that you will be paying for borehole. Yes, your borehole. We have to fight it and make them to remove it from the law. Thanks. You see part 2 of this. Maybe that one will speak to what you're talking about.
Mr. Bode leaves. I know that the media would love to take pictures. Maybe we can just quickly take a group photograph before Mr. Bode leaves. He has to join another meeting in less than 5 minutes. Yes. Okay, sorry. I know we still have like two more people who have questions. Please put your hands once again. Number 4. There's one more person. I think the person from MITV wants to ask a question. Okay, he's out. Yes, the man outside. Okay, he's unavailable. That means he has missed his chance. Do we have a question online? Oh, okay. Then we can take the video. Yes. Still not talking. When we fight, we win. Thank you very much, Gary from water. Pittsburgh, yes. Thank you so very much. So we're just going to go on to, in the absence of questions, we're going to go on to our closing remarks by Mr. Olamide Ogunlade Martins. Martins, yes, comrade, like to say comrade. Martins is also very humble. I know you don't want me to do this, but I'm going to introduce you properly. Martins is he's an associate director at Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa. He's in charge of our climate change and environment desk. So if you have any questions outside this program, you have any need to get reactions, Martins is your go-to guy for climate and environmental issues. Thank you so very much, Martins.
Thank you very much, and I must join others to welcome you and to appreciate time spent here. A lot have been said, quite frankly. The conversation they don't want us to have is what we are having now. Proverbs refer to them as bad Samaritans. But we are here organizing a holy matrimony between water and climate change. In the last COP, I think in Baku, right? Yes. A day was set aside to have conversation on climate change and water. The nexus was established, and what we discovered was the sustained, infiltration of profiteers, those who are behind the crisis. And it's very, very wrong for people to say there's a distinction between, water crisis and climate issues and the likes, and trying to separate these two entities. For crying out loud, those polluting our spaces are also the ones disrupting our water systems. The same system behind this problem, the same people smiling to the bank. So I think what we need to do is to begin to maximize this conversation. And it's quite disheartening that we have to force dialogue on the state. Ideally, in a democratic setup, dialogue should be natural, seamless, and even result-oriented. But in our own climate, we have to enforce dialogue. We have to drag government to the conversation, and it's quite disturbing and really, really concerning. So on that note, I want to welcome you, and also to close this meeting and to say that let's keep the fire burning. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's see how we can leverage these two very important concepts and try to demand justice from those who would rather want to smile to the bank at the expense of the communities. Those are the front line, those who you and I are representing here. Those who are often denied the benefit of expression. And that's why we are doing what we do here at CAPA. Once again, thank you, and I wish you a happy return back to your bases. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martins. Thank you, everyone. And that is how the curtain is going to be drawn on today's program. Thank you so very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you for being on time. Yes, to those online, sorry we didn't take your comments. I just saw one now from Abbas. Thank you. Yes, Miriam Abdul Ganiyu, thank you too for joining us. Please just stay back. Don't go just yet. If you haven't filled any of our forms, please just try and do that, and then just stay back for a